Right.
We are not doing the fighting. And that's critical to what's happening here. Yes, are we funding it? But it's an investment, as far as I'm concerned, investment in the security of our future.
General Jack Keane is looking at the other part of this development here concerning Elon Musk, and that would be probably this notion that some are looking at this as a reflection of his desire to see this end, because European support seems to be ebbing. And at the same time, a number of Florida congressmen are saying because of the hurricane in the United States, it's a reminder we spend a lot more money helping the Ukrainians and not nearly enough helping American citizens. Florida Representative Greg Stubbe among those saying not another penny to Ukraine. We should focus on helping right now people here at home. General, that is a long and windy introduction to you. I apologize for that, but this is something you were worried about, that the appetite to help Ukraine, ironically now, when it's showing real progress against the Russians, might be the last thing Ukraine needs. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, certainly the support among the American people to continue to help Ukraine is about 66%, so it's pretty solid. But there are people in the Congress, and some of them Republicans, who have always expressed some concern about spending, in terms of spending money on Ukraine. But you know, we've got a $6 trillion budget. It's actually larger than that by a few hundred billion. And we've invested, and I mean invested, $66 billion in Ukraine this year. And that's like 1.1%. And what are we getting for that investment? We have Putin, who we were dismissing for years and not taking seriously, despite Georgia in 2008, despite Syria, despite Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014, because he's a declining power. He's got his economy's in a tank. He's a one commodity economy. And we had a tendency, frankly, to not take him serious. And yet all the time he's been talking about Ukraine is a part of Russia, and I'm going to make it a part of Russia. President Xi says the same thing about Taiwan, by the way. And also, and this is the important part, is that his design to bring back under the umbrella of Russia the former Soviet republics that are now in NATO, and that is largely the Baltics and particularly Poland, lesser degree Romania. And we dismissed all of that. But I believe Putin has never given up on that. So for $66 billion, what we're getting is Ukraine is doing the fighting. They are literally destroying the Russian army on the battlefield, which would set them back for years and deny them the ability to ever accomplish under Putin any of his ambitions in terms of taking back some of the Soviet republics. And by the way, if that happened, that would mean war with NATO and Russia. And the scale of that would be much greater than what it is right now. And the risk, certainly, of nuclear war would be much greater. It's something we have avoided all through the Cold War, a conventional war with two superpowers holding strategic nuclear weapons. So for this investment, I think it's well worth it. And what has happened in Florida in terms of natural disasters and suffering of the American people, give them whatever it takes financially to solve that problem.
And they're going to get it. To your point, General, they're going to get it. And that's never been in doubt. I just don't know if this was an opportunity for those who were opposed to all the aid that we're giving Ukraine and criticizing the fact that much of Europe is not, a point that you've raised. That's one thing. But if we abandon them or cut back at this time, that could be game over right there.
Oh, and where does Putin stop after he achieves a victory in Ukraine is my point. Right. We are not doing the fighting, and that's critical to what's happening here. Yes, are we funding it? But it's an investment, as far as I'm concerned, investment in the security of our future. And yes, we'll take care of Americans who are in harm's way as a result of a storm, for sure. That's our history. That's our history, right.
General, good man. I always enjoyed chatting with you. General Jack Keane, on these latest developments here.
The destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
Jeff, we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action? What evidence do you have of that?
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also had the threats from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another, we are going to end Nord Stream. We also have a remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference. He says, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to, it's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know this runs counter to our narrative. It runs, you're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. And just to tell you, and by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, it doesn't show up in our media.
Professor, I want to get into tit for tat about what